Okay, looks like it's working this time.
Well, hi there.
And let's make sure Backerkit's working. Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, it is live. I see it
Oh, so you see it on our Backerkit page,
on
actually?
our YouTube. No, I don't
Uh,
see it on our Backerkit.
let me see if it's working on. Dude, it's
Hello.
working on Backerkit.
Hello, hello,
There we
hello.
go. Sweet.
Yes. Yeah, it is live. Yes.
You see it on our Backerkit page,
On
actually?
our Fantastic. Hello, everybody.
Why am I hearing audio? Let me see if it's working on. There we go. Okay. So cool, finally. Hello, Mike. Why is my camera not centered now? It's so weird. Okay, anyways, we're here, we're live. If we need to bring up the primer, I have that ready to go.
Okay. Yeah, I think there was even like a question on that, right? Like we wanted to talk about primer or something.
Yeah, I think it was Greg. That was a really good question, actually. I'm kind of excited to answer it.
Hmm. Yeah,
There we
solid.
go. I'm a little
Yeah.
more centered now. There we go. And I'm pretty sure it sounds like there is no echo. I made sure to use my headset this time.
Thanks, Eric. I'm glad. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have the primer up on the stream, but I'll leave it off for now just so there's less visual noise maybe, or I'll leave it up. Okay. So yes, hello everybody. Let me get my kind of a mixture here of stream and questions so I can see the chat. There we go.
Awesome. No echoes. Thanks, Mike.
Yes, I've fixed my technical issues.
Set.
So, okay, so I don't know if you watched the last one there, Ricky, um, but pretty much I think that we'll just do kind of the same format. If people are asking questions live, we'll answer those first, and then we'll go to the live or the questions that people asked early um,
Yeah, for sure.
until then. So
Yeah, no worries. And I think in the Discord you had an announcement already. You had that cool
I did, yeah.
thing counting down. So yeah, set.
Yeah. I need to make sure I don't mess with Discord so it doesn't change your camera.
Oh yeah, don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
I will look at it. I've got it on my side here, so we're set.
Yeah, yeah. No worries. Okay. So yeah, we're all good to get started. Um, yeah, hello everybody. Hello Mike. Thank you for being here. Looks like we got some other folks watching as well. So we'll go ahead and get started if nobody has any questions. That's in the chat at least.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, no.
Okay. You want to start it off this time?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so hello everyone. Ricky Rivera here, Chief Product Officer over at Odynski. But yeah, we got some great questions that came in through the Discord that we wanted to, just be able to address on here, as well as just their different community members just asking. And there's some couple fun ones on there as well that I think are just great, right? We kind of just want to share and answer some of those. But maybe I'll just go from the top here.
Oh,
Peter. Oh
sorry,
yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick, before you get started, I did want to mention too, people watching potentially on Backerkit, if you if you join our Discord, you can see some stuff a little bit ahead of time. Potentially, we have some sort of sneak peeks. We do little art teasers and stuff like that a little more often than our weekly updates on Backerkit launch party. So, and then we'll ask questions like I asked a design question about a potential new species the other day. So you just get to be a lot more directly involved there. So definitely want
Yeah.
to let everyone know to go ahead and join Discord if they haven't already, and then you can get very involved that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, I mean it's Indominant has been for all these years been something that's been led by community truly, right? It just
hmm
community members playing the game, giving us feedback, driving just stories and different ways of working mechanics too. So yeah, absolutely, join it up, and love to hear it.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I guess I'll just jump in on one of the first ones here.
yeah,
We could jump around to Zarek, right? So, but yeah,
yeah.
a
The way
fun
I
one
was,
was.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the way I did was I answered like the first question from everybody down the list, and then went to the second question. That way, it kind of
Nice.
went through everybody's questions.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
awesome!
makes
Thank you,
sense.
Mike. Yeah, that'd be awesome to share with your gaming group, especially since they've been playing. It would be awesome to hear some of
Yeah.
their feedback. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When you get back, yeah, feel free to pop in any questions you got going.
Mhm. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry for the. I won't interrupt you the third time. I promise.
Jeez, Eric. Gosh. No, you're fine, man. But no, of all the power sets in Indominate, which was the most challenging to design? And that came from Peter from Tales from Elsewhere Design. Um, but I mean, if I were to just jump in here right away, and you'll probably agree with me, is gadgetry, in my mind. And the reason why is we really wanted to nail kind of the meta of it, the science of it, I should say.
hmm
We wanted it to not be too wild and too zany, but still a lot of fun. I was massively inspired by Rick and Morty when we, started writing out a lot of the powers and so on. Um, but yeah, the inherent effect itself was one that we kind of we made something, loved it for a little while, and then we kind of like scrapped it up, changed out the direction of it to be more kind of simple, I think, in a way
hmm
that is streamlined. And that's kind of like their tagline, right, for games, Eric. I mean, we've keep things so streamlined so you can do it repetitively without having to look into the book constantly. So,
Right.
so that was really really fun. And maybe Zarek, yeah, for yours.
Yeah, I would agree overall. I think gadgetry just between it's kind of the broadest power set in a sense because like with
Yeah,
fire, okay, we're making fire moves like explosions, fire blasts, flamethrowers, it's kind of easy. Whereas with gadgetry, it's kind of unique in that it taps into a lot of other power sets, right? Like it gets some fire stuff, some ice stuff.
yeah,
So it kind of we wanted to balance that without having it like step on those power sets toes too much, right? And then, like you said, yeah, we had completely redesigned the inherent effect. Originally, it was really fun, but it was just really complex. I know that was your original idea of the. I think did we call it idea points at the time? So we
yeah. It
kept
was
idea
still idea
points. Okay.
points. Yeah, we kept
Yeah.
idea points. We just changed the way it worked, right, and what the ideas were.
Yeah.
They were nonsensical inventions, though.
Yeah, and
So
you
that
would
was,
spend those to create like new powers almost
yeah,
of their own, and so it was really fun
because
and
they were like,
awesome, but definitely
hmm
a little complex at the same time. And yeah,
yeah. I didn't want you
Ricky,
to have
your
to keep
camera's
referring back to the page.
a little blurry.
Oh,
Sorry.
oh, that's okay. Yeah, we didn't want you to have to keep on like going back and forth through the book, right? We just
Yeah,
wanted you to very easily just look at one thing. Okay, I know what those three things are. I remember them. Simple. So
yeah, and I
yeah,
think part of it was we couldn't write that inherent effect in the part of the character sheet that's for your inherent effect. There's too much
right.
information, so just one of those things. Like sometimes you gotta let those really cool ideas go for reasons like that. It's not that they're bad ideas, but just might be a little too complex or something. So
Yeah,
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 I
absolutely.
think a close second for me would be psionics. I think psionics is probably one that's had the most changes of any power set. Um,
Yeah,
similar reasons, like things can be too strong. You know, we had a power like at one point where you could lift somebody up and move them, and I think that's like part of what caused the famous scenario of the boss getting dropped in the lava, and then I think
Yeah.
didn't Donnelly, the same player, didn't he also like use lift to keep moving somebody higher up into the air and then drop them from
Mm.
like way high? So
Yeah, like some ridiculously high, like to where it would just insta kill like most threats, right?
yeah,
So we had to wait. That's something we got to limit.
yeah,
So
yeah, that power's
yeah,
gone.
that wasn't. That's it. Professionally, I work in product management, and the thing about it is that you can design something right to be worked in some kind of way, but players will always find some kind of way to actually change that or read it as different, right? It's different of
Hmm.
rules as written versus rules as intended, that kind of
Yeah,
thing. It was fun. I mean, I let it happen, right? But
yeah,
still, it was quite silly.
right. Problematic in
So
that it would just destroy every encounter in a sense. Yeah,
exactly, yeah. So.
yeah.
Hmm.
So that's a good one. Next question, we'll jump to Sasha, one of our Discord members, Sasha Nini.
Yeah.
Um, what is the best way to design goons? The bog standard, nameless enemies who impede you getting to the big bad. Um, this is kind of a hard question to answer, maybe, because you want them to be simple, but not like meaningless or boring per se.
Right.
I don't know. For me, at least, I've never liked like the idea of minions that have just one health. I just find it
Hmm.
kind of, especially if the players know that they have one health, it really removes a lot of the like mystery, and it feels kind of like cheating in a sense where it's like, oh, he only has one health. Like I'm always going to one shot that enemy. So fighting
Hmm.
that enemy doesn't feel that interesting to me because you just know it's like, oh, just throw whatever little thing I can at them and they're no big deal. Whereas I think for me, I like enemies feeling valid to me as a even as a superhero, you know, like I don't want to fight the small fry and like just flick them and they're done, you know. That's not
Yeah.
very interesting or entertaining for me. So that's my
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, especially because you did a lot of the threat design. So
For
if you
sure.
you probably have
Yeah.
more answers.
It's a fun question. So I recently did a video on just threat design as a whole, right? But when you think about just kind of like that nameless kind of like big group of goons versus that one big boss, the always number one thing that I focus on is what is like the overall thematics of this entire group. Like for instance, the Blood Syndicate, there are big mobsters in our universe. If they're mobsters, then they're not going to go like head on to something. They're going to try to trick, try to deceive, and whatnot, right? So even their goons, like their lowest level goons who are meant to just take out something, that's the way they're thinking, that they want to first get an advantage in some kind of way, some kind of
Hmm.
dirty tactic, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So even the simplest goon can be something that they could actually have particular powers that put them on in kind of an advantage in some kind of way, right? That keeps supers like on their actual toes, right?
Hmm.
Constantly thinking about it and so on. So whether they, I don't know, they cause a stun or they cause a poison, they cause a something, but it's not something that you just now rush and clear out. They're
Hmm.
actually smart, about it as well. And then their
Yeah.
big boss really helps in kind of helping put that whole scene together because the big bad is always going to try to strategize or be put in a good scenario. So they're going to attack from surprise or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, that's the way I think about it. Just think about the thematics first. Then, okay, how does even the simplest guy actually apply their kind of powers or tactics to the battlefield? Thinking on that. If they're just big old monsters, right, and they're meant to like gang up on something just to eat it up, then let it be that they do that, right, and that they again put themselves in some kind of advantage to do that kind of thing. So it's just
Hmm.
that way of kind of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely more informative than my answer.
No, you're good, man. Awesome.
Okay.
So the next one is from Charles at What is Tabletop? Hi, Charles. So really good question here. Do you prefer heroes or more grounded in reality with flaws? Or do you prefer that the heroes always do good and rarely do anything bad, like quote unquote? For me, I like that all my heroes to be grounded, and have flaws. I don't think any person or being is necessarily perfect, and so even heroes in my eyes, I don't think they should be perfect, because if they were perfect, then they're kind of boring in my eyes, right? Like it doesn't make sense that they're absolutely everything is the way they decide on things and so on is that way.
Mm-hmm.
So when I even design heroes, like different stories that we tell in our own universe, I always think of the chinks in their armor, the way that they kind of respond to things and so on. One of my Discord photos was of Sir Aldrich. He's a knight from 500 years ago, got a curse put on him, and he was pushed forward that much amount of time, right? And now he's a knight in the 21st century or 22nd century.
Mm-hmm.
uh, how would he respond, right? He's chivalrous, but he's kind of lost and confused and that kind of thing. So that's the thing about it, that they don't have to be absolutely perfect or absolutely strong, but they
Mm-hmm.
definitely can do heroic deeds. So
Yeah, yeah, I think for me, same thing. I agree, like that groundedness and having flaws is good. I think they will or they should do bad, air quotes bad things, but with good intentions. And part of what makes them heroes is that they strive for perfection in the face of not being perfect. It's like
yeah,
they're supposed to push and promote the like ideal person, but they're not. And I think that's what makes them a lot more interesting,
yeah,
storyline wise. Is that's probably I think that's why Peter Parker and Batman are some of the most interesting heroes to me, and that's why like Superman, I think he can be really interesting, but he's not in my to me because the way he gets used in stories is he's just like unbeatable, perfect. He never does anything wrong. He's always doing the right thing, and so it's kind of like we've already read that book, if that makes sense, you know.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've seen that probably enough, in that it's better to just have those kind of realistic stories, I think, in some ways.
Hmm.
They could be alien, but they can have human aspects to them, I think.
Yeah,
So yeah. Awesome.
absolutely.
Mike said, I love the weak villains who are dangerous because of their tactics.
Yeah,
uh, yeah,
it's kind of
yeah,
like
so
Joker in a sense. Like Joker is a good example of that.
hmm
Yes, he's overused, but I think he's just a good example because he's not physically strong or dangerous per se. He's dangerous because he's crazy and the things he's going to do and the underhanded
yeah,
tactics he uses. Yeah.
unpredictable,
Hmm.
absolutely. And
Right.
that's a thing where someone else, like his counter Batman is, more justice oriented, obviously, and straight and narrow down the line on at least that aspect of it. So yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you'll like this next one then, if you want if you want to take it.
Yes, yes. Ryan, the designer of Ethereal, asked us, of all dice sizes, which one do you think looks the tastiest? If we're going just off of size, I would probably say the D20, but that's because have you seen those really nice resin ones that almost look like gummies?
Mhm.
I feel
Yeah,
like the D20s always look like they have the most like refraction because of their
like
shape.
like this little sour gummy looking
Yeah,
one right
yeah,
here.
exactly.
I know it's a D12. This is my favorite, the D12.
Yeah.
I just love the shape of it. But
Dodecahedron.
yeah, yeah, there you go. I love this a lot because of that. But yeah, no, I agree, right? Like the materials of that, it really it can throw you for a loop. You got to be careful.
Yes.
I don't- we both have families, so we got to watch out where we put our dice, because our kiddos, man.
Oh yeah, the young ones especially.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll be like a fruit snack to them.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but yeah, fun question. Always love that. Um,
Yeah.
so a really fun one. Thanks, Wildman Greg, or Greg, for asking this question. In the Backerkit version of Indominant, the core rule book, we're expanding the player options out to level 20 exclusively, or, and this is the question, is it inherently changing the mechanics of the system? And so it gives an example of, for example, custom power sets being added. How close is the primer going to match the full version by your estimate? I mean, right off the cuff, and I think Zarek's better at some of this, but to be quite fair and open with the primer, a lot of it is the like our core mechanics. Obviously, it was built that way to be able to play the game. Um, the I think the core rulebook really expands on some things. Like for me, I love the section about character customization, where you can change the colors of your outfit, you can change the materials, you can think about certain items that would be important to you to maybe to start your story. Who's important people in your super's actual life, right? And so that whole section doesn't exist in the primer because it's like 20 pages. And we
Hmm.
just could not afford to put that in our small book primer, right? So yeah, go for it, Zarek.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Sleepy Moose, thank you for joining us, Mike Morbid's group. Yeah, we heard that you guys are enjoying it. It's so awesome to hear that. Really awesome to see a group get started. And I'm following, oh, maybe I shouldn't say, Mike might not want me to tell them, but I'm in the Facebook group, so I'm reading the updates about it. And it's awesome. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so to answer the question though, yeah, pretty much what you said is exactly true, right? It's the primer matches the full version very closely. In rules wise, it's the same. We're not going to make huge changes. There might be during the playtest process of like the higher level content, we might find that we might want to change like one or two rules a little bit, but for the most part, the rules are going to stay the same. It's just
Yeah.
expanding your options from level 5 up to level 20. We even have all the same 10 power sets, right? And like
Hmm.
Ricky said, it's mostly going to add more meat, but like flavorful. Maybe not adding more meat per se. I guess it is, but it's adding a lot
Yeah,
more
it is. Yeah.
flavor, like with the sections Ricky mentioned of, we're
Yeah.
going to have a lot of information that uh, helps you with creating your character thematically, story-wise, visually, things like that. Like there's random name sections for the different species in there.
Yeah.
Um, there is a chance based we have some stretch goals that will add a little bit of content to the book, but it's not very much. So potentially there's going to be some slight differences there. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
other than that, I mean, it's really an expansion of the same core. And we did that on
Hmm.
purpose with the primer. We wanted the primer
Yeah.
to be full rules, not like a chunk of them. And we might have some optional rules or like some expanded rules in the Super's Information Codex, but it's not going to be so much that it's like, oh, the primer's nothing and the full book is like a different game almost.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that the primer in many ways is like that, just that starter kit, what you need to
hmm
get going, and just get moving, right?
yeah.
And then even being able to, quickly and efficiently, flip through the main core rules. So in some ways it could be like a quick reference,
hmm
but the core rule book, we're doing some cool design work that I won't let out of the bag, but I think we're doing some really cool stuff there where it's going to be very easy to kind of flip through. So.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think one other thing too is there'll be a lot more lore because we don't have a lot of lore
Yeah,
in
that's
the
true.
primer. There will be more lore, which again goes back to that like flavor, story kind of thing
Exactly.
rather than
Yeah.
rules expansion per se.
And
So,
photos. Lots more
oh
photos.
yeah, images, yeah, lots more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Matt is the store owner. Sleepy Moose, I'm gonna guess, is Matt. Um, yeah, that's awesome. The Mighty Static Man.
That's so
That's
cool.
great. Yeah, awesome.
So, you want to get their next one? And feel free to chat if
Yeah,
you have any quick questions. We're just
yeah,
going through some again that were popped in the community, Discord community.
yeah. We'll answer any live questions first, but we just got a list that way in case we don't have a lot of people watching for whatever reason, or just nobody has any questions. We have some things to talk about still. So
For
let me take a
sure.
swig of water real quick. Actually, let me
Yeah.
ask this question and then I'll let you answer while
Ah.
I drink water. So August TTRP Genius on that always makes me slip up. TTRP Genius on YouTube What is your biggest pet peeve with other game systems game design? You want to go first while I
Mm.
drink some water?
Yeah, yeah. When I saw this, I kind of was thinking about like we've read a lot of books, like a lot of different systems, both fantasy, sci-fi, like just different ones, right? Both of us are, D&D and Pathfinder folks that played a lot of games of them. But I think at the same rate, one thing for me is that some game design doesn't take a chance. Doesn't try to gamble and try to perhaps go out there and make something totally wholly unique. And I'm not talking like a gimmick like, I don't know, using extra dice or something like that, but really just trying to actually do something that maybe is fun and unique to their world, their universe, whatever it is, right? Um, like for instance, there are tons of systems that still use advantage and disadvantage, and you literally use it as just the double d20s.
Hmm.
For us, we're like, you know what? We have in our title Indominant, right? And even with that, we want to be able to do something that causes dominance on enemies, right? To be able to actually like go and work and strategize yourself to actually be in a good position on the battlefield. And so we made this dominance and weakness system that can allow it to be where you actually go for a hit, you go for an attack, you have some kind of dominance because you're flanking them, you've stunned them, you've done this and that and done and all these things, and now you have an extra whole dice that can actually cause a critical hit that explodes. So that
Hmm.
one basic hit that would have been normal, perhaps in other systems, now becomes a huge explosion. And many times since we've introduced that, it's been the game changer of that entire battle that,
Hmm.
definitely moved things over for, that group. So just taking a chance, I think for me is my pet peeve. Like just go for it, right? And that goes for any game designer. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I would say that's a big agree for me. So you pretty much covered that. So I'll have another one. For me personally, I do not like overly detailed or like focused mechanics around minutia. So like my favorite example always is uh, your weapons. Use it in D&D, for example. So if you have an attack with a specific hand, it matters which hand you use to make that attack. I think they changed that in 2024 rules, but in 2014, one of the feats was dueling, I think, right? And it had to be you make an attack with a weapon and you have nothing else in your other hand. And I get it, but it's just that caring about those things to me just is it's too nitpicky or like minutia
Yeah.
focused. And then another good example is like equipment weight, counting actual like pounds of equipment that's in your bag and things like that.
Hmm.
Like I prefer abstractions. We do that. Tales from Elsewhere does that as well, where it's just like a weight number. It doesn't, or I think he calls it equipment load, where it's
Yeah.
not a certain amount of weight or a certain amount of space. It's
Hmm.
just kind of an abstraction. I prefer getting away from realism for things like that because I just find, or like another one, I guess I can go on about this for a long time, but like counting ammo for, especially in our game,
Yeah,
we've got weapon
arrows.
mastery.
Yeah.
You can use a bow or guns. And it's like, imagine if you had to count your bullets. Like, oh Lord, that would be so terrible. It's taking you
Yeah.
out of the game to play a different
Right.
game. Like, yeah, I get it can be kind of fun to like manage your inventory, but I think when you get into little details like that, it just takes away from the purpose of what TTRPGs are about. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. I can't
um,
can't agree more. I do not want to count my arrows. I always played a ranger in D&D, and
yeah, I like Rangers too.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, oh yeah, gear die is a great way. Exactly. That's a way better way to do it rather than like actually counting arrows. Like, okay, I attacked
right.
3 times this turn. I had 15 arrows. Like, oh, geez, like
There
just
it goes.
skip
Well,
it.
gotta go pick them up. Well,
Yeah, yeah, because then you get into that too, right? Like, oh, I gotta, after we completed the fight, I walk to every guy and pick up my arrows. And it's like some of them might be broken. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Gear
As
die
you
is a
can
great
tell,
way.
we can go on and on this one.
Yes, yes. Um, Before we ask or answer the next question, the Pitbull did ask if we could give a quick overview. We'll keep it quick just because we're in a Q&A. You can go to our website, um, to find out more information, or our Backerkit page. We'll expand upon that when we launch. We've
Yeah.
also got a free primer, so you can download we call it a quick start, but that's going to be very deceiving because it's 196 pages. It's one of the bigger ones that I've seen. It's all the core rules and all 10 power sets that we use, so it's the core system.
Yeah.
But I think like a 10,000 or 1,000-foot overview would be it's a tactical game that's about working together as a team to overcome enemies, and that's for the combat side. So it's a little bit crunchy and tactical. And then outside of combat, we're a lot more loose and narrative focused. You're
Mhm.
not going to be using a power that says you can light an object on fire. You're just going to light the object on fire. And if it's too big or too durable, then maybe you can't do it. That's up to your comic editor, which is what we call the GM. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really short bit. I don't know if you want to expand on that or add to if I missed anything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess fun couple things is that we really wanted this game to be where you can be the superhero that you always wanted to be, right? Zarek hit it on like, hey, if I want to light something on fire, I'm going to light something on fire, that kind of thing, right? But as well as there's these actions that allow you to really go out there and be that hero, stopping a car from falling on someone. That could be a whole what we call momentous action that allows you to literally strain yourself, but to actually stop something from happening, right? And have a very good chance of it not only stopping it, but for it to cause other things in combat. A fun scenario there, a bunch of folks that we were playing with, they were overrun by an invading force on a spaceship, so they had to escape. They had to go to escape pod, and one of the players pulled a momentous action to grab all of the soldiers that were like, "No, no, you go ahead," and they're like, "No, we're all going." And he literally grabbed all
Yeah.
four of the soldiers, shoved them in the pod. All of the players escaped just in time because guess what? The ship exploded right after, right? Like it was just so cool in that sense. It was
Hmm.
so fun in that sense. So yeah, so just
Yeah.
that's the kind of game that we have.
Yeah. Here's the art for like momentous action, like what Ricky's talking about,
Yeah,
catching or creating a big chunk of rock to save some civilians from falling debris. Like that's a very good example of one.
yeah,
Also, some more basic things about the system. It's a D20 system with rollover, and you add modifiers, things like that. If for the dice system. But we do
yeah,
have, like Ricky was mentioning in an earlier question, we have our moment or our dominance and weakness system. So we have our own unique version of advantage and disadvantage, and it's our own full rule set built from the ground up. It is very familiar to other D20 systems, especially for people coming from D&D and Pathfinder. It will be very familiar, but it's its own system. That familiarity isn't just like we copy and pasted rules. It's just that we keep things easy to understand and like easy to learn.
yeah. Well, that was 10,000. Um,
I think we zoomed in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we love talking about Indominus, so feel free to ask away, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just this next one. We had Blaze Reason. I always forget how to say this. Is Hanukkon the
I think
world
it's
shaper?
Isha
It's like
Nekon.
Ishenikon. Okay, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Sorry, Blaze. I butchered that. But you asked, what is your favorite archetype, power set, background, and species, and what's your favorite combination of those? Um, I kind of want to jump ahead here for just for timing on this, but it is for me, it is light manipulation guardian. I just love the aspect of somebody who is kind of like a paladin. I've always played kind of paladin players or characters in different games, and with that said, light manipulation is our biggest healing kind of archetype, but it also is very supportive and can dish out some pain if it needs to, just like a paladin, right? And then the actual archetype of guardian, that's all about being in the front lines. It is about protecting others. It's about supporting others. It's about taunting away threats away from your friends, right? So that's always been who I've been, right? That guy that always sticks up for friends and stuff, So and then to the background, I've always liked the kind of like the villain-esque background, the villain that we have, because they could be an undercover villain and come off as a hero, but just like we talked about earlier, they could have different actual flaws within them that convert them over to being a hero, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, that kind of thing, yeah. So,
That's a fun
and
storyline. The like villain who's undercover but then turns good because he's
yeah,
around the heroes. Yeah, yeah, it's fun.
exactly. Yeah. Um, and then for species, it'd probably be high C for me. Our high C, our highly intelligent creature. You could be any animal you want, and you're
Hmm.
a humanoid version of that animal. So I made a horse guy, right? He had the head of the horse, but the body of a human. And
The
called him.
equestrian.
I called him Ian. So Ian was his nickname.
Yeah,
My friend Ian would laugh if he was on here and that.
that was a fun one.
Sorry, long-winded, but yeah, go for it. What's yours?
Yeah, for me, archetype's got to be the bruiser. Just I like big tough fighters. Like Hulk would kind of fall into that category. He's my favorite character. Like The Thing, Luke Cage, they're kind of like bruisers to me. Those are my
Yeah.
favorite. Power set's kind of hard. I think for me, one of my favorites is probably weapon mastery or electricity manipulation, one of those two. Um, I like the things that both of them do. Electricity is just kind of like something I like. I do also like ice, but for some reason, I just kind of gravitate more towards the electricity. So, as far as background, I like the just good old hero, honestly. I like
Yeah.
being a hero. And in our lore and setting, right, there's a lot of other kind of assumptions being made there, like being in the GLU. So I like the heroes. And then species is the robotics and specifically the chromids. Um,
Mhm.
that's here you can see on the cover, this character on the
Yeah.
left here, he's a chromid. And so Milton did an amazing job with the art capturing the description, how we described it. I guarantee it was like the worst description ever, and he ended up doing such a great job. Um,
That was
I
perfect.
described it, so it was awful, I'm sure. But
He makes magic, man. It
oh
is
yeah,
wild how he does that.
and that
So
was the first piece he ever did with us, so it wasn't like we had been
yeah.
used to how each other communicates yet, and he just like killed it. Here's Xiao Hu, the same character again, um, in a different pose, and you can see the light refracting off of him more. That's where we get the name chromid, is that kind
Yeah.
of irradiance, almost looks like an oil slick kind of shining off of them. So that would be my favorite species. And then I think favorite combo probably would just be a bruiser with all those things. That's kind of my favorite combo. I also like a fire manipulation bruiser specifically. Um, that's also one of my favorite ones. So
He's always making fire manipulation boosters.
yes, Shelburne. I play Shelburne a lot. He's like one of my favorites. I guess I'll show Shelburne's art, but he's a fire manipulation bruiser, and yeah,
Yeah.
I like that combo. I'll
Yeah.
show
That's fun.
Shelburne real quick.
I think it's great too. I mean, you get behind some of the archetypes and how that really flavors your power set, right? It
Hmm.
with having somebody who's a bruiser, like, I mean, they're usually kind of like, quote, like bigger or stronger in some kind of way. They're also in your face, and it's really a cool way to kind of make that combination, that description that you're looking for, of what you want to play as. So,
Hmm.
oh, super zoom.
Yeah, super zoom on accident for a second.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's Shelburne. I made Zarek a little miniature. I did a lot of
Yeah,
kit bashing for any 3D modelers out there or
right here.
miniature modelers. Yeah, and yeah, that was a fun one to paint. So,
Yeah, it's super awesome. It's right on my shelf, right behind me
hmm
at all times.
bam.
Yeah. And Mike mentioned it's that the game is easier to learn than 5e and Pathfinder, and that was the goal. We wanted to be easy
Yeah,
to learn, but there's a lot of depth, specifically in character creation, and there's lots of good combos and tactics you can do working with your teammates. Mike
exactly.
did
Yeah.
just ask a question if you want to, or I guess I
Yeah.
can ask
Thanks,
you.
Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any plans to publish a source book with characters from your campaign? So, really quick, we actually already have 10 different characters, a lot of the ones that are already on photos and different things like that, available absolutely free and character sheets, and they have their background story on the character sheet as well. They are actually live on our website, so odynski.com. So you can get those pre-generated supers already and play as them now. They start at level 1. Most of them, I think a couple of them, we actually made them level 3, just so that way you can see like, oh, this is the path to leveling
Hmm.
them up, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
But I mean, Zarek, I think you'd agree with me that absolutely yes. Like, I'd love
yeah.
to have a source book that has gosh, Heatsink, for instance, and his story and how it can play a big part in a full-on campaign.
Right.
And going against some kind of large threat that maybe is new to the actual universe that we introduced there, and
Hmm.
then definitely even new supers being able to introduce them, but have a logical fun story that introduces them in, like maybe dark energy
Hmm.
power, and introducing that in a smart way that's just it's fun, and can
Hmm.
make sense for a campaign easily. So
Yeah. Yeah, and we have some different ideas. We're not sure how exactly we'll combo them, but like we have new content as far as like power sets that we want to release and new species types, things like that,
yeah,
and callings. And so how we pair that in a book, whether it's like a campaign, which we call mission arcs, or we might do some books that are like purely just a mission arc and it will introduce some characters like Ricky mentioned, introducing a new character for you to interact with. Just kind of like that, what do they call it? Like a cameo of sorts.
yeah,
Just because we love the characters we make, we spend the time to make them for a reason. So,
exactly.
yeah, great question.
Yeah, awesome.
And then we can go back to Peter's. We got another question from Peter, the lead designer of Tales from Elsewhere. He said, if you
Yeah.
could remove one comic book character from every, uh, says from ever being talked about again, who would it be?
It's 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 kind of like whatever answer we say can come off as mean, but I'm sorry, Zach, I'm gonna jump ahead because I saw this and I wanted to answer it. For me, it's actually Superman, and maybe Zarek might agree with me, but besides kryptonite, the guy's invincible, and it's really hard for me sometimes to associate, total invincibility, against different villains and things like that. Although you read through his comics, he's got villains that were very smart, that overcame that. We talked about Joker earlier and him using kind of brains and different tactics, right, as sabotage. But at the same rate, I'm like, man, if that was one, I would remove. But I do respect, of course, the creators and so on of Superman because it obviously inspired a lot of great stories from the future. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, definitely can respect him. But I think honestly mine might be the same. Um, it's not because I don't like Superman though. Like I said earlier, right? It's just like, and you said it too. He's invincible. Like, what is there for
yeah,
the guy to fight and come up against? Like, he's, this kind of stories he's been in. He literally comes back from the dead and stuff, and nothing can ever kill him, even when he's in like a weakened state. He always, and I don't really like that he's just got a bunch of mishmashed powers. I know a lot of them
yeah,
were taken out of context and like changed as the years went on. Like the freezing breath wasn't originally that. It
yeah,
was just like powerful breath. and since he breathed so fast, it would like cool things down, or like get rid of
The
fire.
science
But
behind it.
yeah, but it turned into like ice breath and then like laser vision, X-ray vision.
Right.
Um, I don't know. I just find characters more interesting like when they have a power, and that means they have weaknesses too. Like Cyclops, I think is a
Hmm.
great example of it's not actually heat vision, the description of his powers, but for all intents and purposes, it's very similar to Superman's laser beam eyes, but it's also like
Yeah.
his one biggest weakness.
Hmm.
He'll just destroy everyone around him if he doesn't wear his special glasses and stuff. So if you take those off of him, he has to either close his eyes or destroy everything. Like that makes him really interesting.
Yeah.
You can tell
Exactly.
stories with that. So yeah, I think a version of Superman, like I kind of like the Superboy version where he's just got like the super strength and he's like highly resistant to harm. I find that
Yeah.
version a little bit better, and he
Makes
has
sense.
to learn lessons and like learn that he can't just fix everything with brute force. Whereas like Superman's array of powers can fix any problem, dang near, and he's like,
Exactly. Or if he can't, he'll go back in time. My
right, he'll
goodness.
fly faster than the Flash and go back in time and fix it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Or like his
So,
one weakness of magic disappeared and he's not actually weak to magic anymore. I think there's a lore reason for why that. I don't know. I obviously not liking Superman that much. I haven't read all of the comics, but
right, right. Yeah, yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think that kind of opens us up for this next one. Another good one
Hmm.
from Sasha. So Sasha wrote, is any degree of lethality or the lack of it assumed, or is it left to the GM? And I think you're writing this, Sasha, in the point of view of like, when you get hit by something as a super, is it lethal to you? Can someone go down and stay down, permanently, that kind of thing? Um, I think it is up to the comic editor. So in a lot of my games, I like, even right now I just did it. I didn't say like the word that he died or something, right? I actually tried to not say those words because for me, I like the aspect of heroes that, yeah, they can get beat up, beat up, beat up, but they can get back up again. You know, so I never say like, oh, you're on threat of like dying and things like that. But I think that the threats, though, they can, in fact, deal a great deal of damage and cause that moment where, oh my God, like he's on the ground, he's beat up, he's knocked out. What does that mean for the whole party now? Do they need to go save their friend? Do they need to take care of the threat? That kind of thing. So it is up to the comic editor and how they describe things, at least from like the games that I run. But you
Hmm.
can flip the script because you can make things more gritty, obviously, and say like, no, like you're out for the count. Right? You taking some serious shots, those kind of things. So it's all kind of up to you and the comic editor essentially in how you guys want to play that out. So hope that helps and kind of makes sense. Maybe Zarek, anything on that too?
Yeah, I think from the perspective to like the other perspective, right, of the players, the supers, and how they defeat the villains and the bad guys, how lethal and ruthless are they? Again, that's up to the group, I would say. Um, if that's the kind of thing the group wants to do, and you want to kill somebody and be, as far as like gruesome and gore, that's a slightly different story, I think, than what's being asked here. But um, like you can kill people, but in the lore, a hero of the GLU. You're not just like supposed to go around killing
Yeah.
criminals. It's supposed to be you respond in kind, and if it requires it and it happens, then it's not ideal, but it is what it is. So
Hmm.
yeah, Fine Ground Cryptids is actually Ryan. We answered one of Ryan's
Oh, nice.
questions. Ethereal is the game he makes. If you like, I don't know so much horror. There's definitely some horror in the monsters, but Ethereal is um, it's a new game coming out. They're working on it. It's focused on like cryptids, and it's actually very fun. I'm gonna run a session of it later this year in GM's Day Off. But um, yeah, you should definitely check it out, Mike, if you like that kind of stuff.
Love it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
I think maybe this might be the last one because it's actually a really
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah, it
But
might
yeah,
be a
go for
really long answer, so it could be the
it.
last question here. Charles from What is Tabletop asked, what inspired you to get into game development? So for me, I don't know exactly what inspired me to, but when I was young, I've always been a big video game player. And as I became an older teenager, I started getting into tabletop games and board games as well. For some reason, I just always wanted to make games. Like I played, like I said, a lot of video games, City of Heroes, League of Legends, another big one, even World of Warcraft back in the day. I've
Yeah.
just always wanted to make games because I had a lot of fun playing games of all kinds, like I said, not just video games. And so it's just something I've always wanted to do. It gets that creative juice out of me, and I like making things that are fun to play and interact with. And so that's just like the general kind of thing. But then what actually kickstarted the game development for Indominant was all of my ideas, as I mentioned, I had a lot of game design ideas, and I always wanted to be a game designer. When I was a teenager, I would start telling my dad all of my different ideas. And I'm sure I talked to Xerox so much about them that just by chance, when I was talking about a superhero version of D&D that I wanted to make, he was like, why don't you just do it? Like, you don't need programming skills. You just need to be able to write down the rules and stuff. And so it should be way easier to get into. When he said that, I was just like, you know what? Why not? Like, you're right. I
Actually,
can I
yeah.
can type on a computer. I can type rules. And so that was at the very end of 2019. In early 2020, I started really working on it with Jared. And then
Mm,
that brought us to where I met Ricky. He was a play tester. I'll let you kind of tell your story. He jumped in really gung ho, and then he joined the team, and that brings us to where we're at now, pretty much. I mean, that
yeah.
was, oh, geez, that was 3 years ago now, almost, wasn't it? That you joined?
Yeah.
You joined in
Yeah. Yeah.
22,
Yeah. 3 years.
so
It's flown by, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Zarek's
So,
dad is awesome. Met him on a bunch of occasions, and just a
hmm
straightforward guy, but just fun to chop it up about life with him.
hmm
But yeah, sometimes you need that good, like just like slap, like yeah, do the thing, right?
yeah. He's like, stop talking to
uh,
me and do it.
yeah, yeah, it's so cool. Um, but yeah, for me, like what inspired me to get into game development, I'm actually I mentioned it earlier today, but I'm in product management. Product management is all about actually creating some kind of product. I'm in software development, but with that, I've always seen like just the method, like the strategy of actually looking at something and saying, how can I make this better? How can I tweak this? How can I go about that, right? And I started playing D&D like right around COVID and right after COVID got came and went. And got involved with Zarek through playtesting, and my wife was actually his college friend, and he posted something about playtesting, and I jumped in. But during that time, it was really fun because I was applying all the methods of product management to actually like his game, and I was like, man, like did you test this? Did you see that? Have you sent surveys out? Have you thought about this? And blah blah blah, right? And it really got me thinking like I can apply that thinking cap to kind of any genre. Why not do it to a industry rather, any industry? Why not put in an industry that I actually love and care about, that I love playing on my free time, that I could pour my heart into, and have a lot of fun doing it and being proud of? And now we have a really amazing community. We're about to launch a Backerkit. Like it's one of the coolest blessings ever that Zarek said, yeah, come over here. But it's also just really fun to just be now like in these conversations with different game developers, some folks here on the video here, and then
Yeah.
being able to just chop it up with different mechanics and so on. So yeah, I think that's kind of what inspired me and got me going. So if anything, I owe it to my wife for introducing me to Zarek and
Yeah.
me getting my brain to think that way.
Yeah, you were so
So
gung ho. He's like making
yeah,
powers. After his first session, he's like, I have some ideas for powers you should make because he was testing out gadgetry. So
yeah,
yeah, it was great.
yeah.
So I think we can answer one more question here. Ryan's got a good one before we kind of call it and wrap up. I partially because I read it and I want to answer it, but
Okay,
also we
sure,
do
sure.
have a few minutes. Um, Ryan, the lead designer of Ethereal, also asked, does Indominant lore have its own version of a Thanos, Darkseid, Galactus, etc., those end of time sort of villains? Right now, not necessarily. We have one, well, maybe two. I wouldn't call one of them a
Yeah.
villain though, but I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, the Dark Worm and Ordonin.
Yeah.
So Ordonin would be one that's kind of close. He's part of a group of Cenarians that they literally get mutated by the radiation from their moons and they go crazy. And so he's like a huge, he's kind of like a Hulk kind of character, but he's got four
Mm,
arms and special powers and stuff like that. But he's very powerful, um, and so he would be the
yeah.
closest. But it's not like that literally eats a planet or like can snap half the universe away, things like that.
Right.
Not to that extent, but
I think it goes back to that question of or not really the question on it, but really how we talked about grounded in reality,
hmm
right? Your heroes grounded in reality. Essentially, that's kind of the same thing. Our major villains that we're eventually going to release or have different stories for, back to sources, and even a threat index. Being able to provide like a whole group. But like the syndicate is kind of the mobsters in our universe, and having somebody Balos Kane, this is the
mm,
the biggest big dog. We have some art for him. I don't know if you want to pop that up, but
yeah, sure.
this is somebody who would kind of control many, many strings across the universe. And you imagine the mind that it takes to do that across thousands of planets, across hundreds and hundreds of organizations, like that kind of thing. Those are the kinds of folks that we have, and that somebody. And when would you actually ever face that? That's a level 20 threat.
hmm
So yeah, so that's kind of one of those guys that it's really up there. But then you have those mid-level people that you would probably face halfway through your campaign that would lead you to eventually finding Balos, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of other threats that are similar in vein of that they control organizations. They do it in their own kind of way. Some are full of chaos, some are full of just straight up they're monsters and they'll eat everything. So back to that threat design question, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's
Do you
kind of
want?
how it is. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Do you want me to show the art of him, or do you want to keep it under
Yeah,
wraps?
if you have it handy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where
Got it.
our threats are. That here's a guy who has some serious back to Balos has serious cybernetic enhancements. He is a psionic at heart, but he's kind of manipulated in some terrible ways, right? To obviously mind control and so on, right? And actually manipulate people from far away. So that would probably be closer to that level, but it's not exactly Galactus.
Right.
It's maybe just below Darkseid in many ways as far as power scaling goes, if we were to be honest. But the control he has, the grip on the universe is a big one. So just that's one big threat where
Yeah.
there's others kind of like him that we have, but
Yeah.
we'll review
Ordonin
those on
is
another day.
probably close
Mhm.
to the same kind of
Yeah,
level, but he's
exactly.
he's not going to be in the threat index. I don't think. I don't know. We'll figure that out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, but
But yeah.
awesome. Yeah. But thank you
So
everyone for hopping on. Appreciate it
yeah.
so much. Feel free to join the Discord and keep the conversation going. That's
hmm
where we got a lot of the questions from today. So love that communication there. So
Yeah. And don't forget to follow the Backerkit. It is how many days do we have left till we launch? 25 days, pretty much and a
yeah,
half. 25 and a half days. It'll be April 8th, Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time.
yeah,
So don't um, don't forget to follow that. And then yeah, that's it for us today. Thank you for joining us, everybody, and for watching and asking questions.
yeah. Talk to you soon.